You are recording.
Yep. Okay.
Hey, great. Thanks, Lisa. I'll turn on my video here. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the first STAC meeting of 2021. I hope everyone's doing well. I also wanted to say that I think attending on behalf of Varun today. I'm not sure if that means he needs to be moved over to the panelists section.
I don't see Arun as an attendee.
Bud's attending for Room today.
Oh, okay. I don't see Bud either.
It might be under a phone number. Bud, are you the 760967 number?
I think that's a North County Transit number.
Oh, okay.
Let me see. What number, Megan, what number are you asking for?
If Bud's in the attendees, I was.
Yeah, but what is it? 760, what's the next three numbers?
967.
No, 955 is the North County number, transit. There's a 995. It's either 995, that's what it is. So it's not North County Transit. Unless it's a fact office number, and then that one isn't on the system. North County Transit system.
No, I don't think that's Bud's number either. Maybe he's not on yet. Okay, we can worry about that later if needed. But anyways, Lisa, did you want to go ahead and take roll?
Sure. Thank you, Megan. Welcome everyone to the 5th virtual meeting of the STAC. I'd like to start off by doing a quick roll call vote to ensure we have a quorum. So Ilse Carey, are you here? I think I saw you.
I'm here.
Okay, good morning. Kent Rodricks, I think I saw you here too.
Hi, everybody. Here.
All right, Lori Seagram.
I hear.
Hi, Lori. Charlene, I heard you.
Yeah, I'll even let you see me for a minute. Whoops. I'm here.
Good morning. Okay, Catherine Manis.
Here.
Okay, Helen Elias. Okay, I don't think she's here. Clyde Kohler.
I'm here.
Hi, Clyde. Wayne.
Hi.
Here.
Hi, Wayne. Rebecca Steiner. I think she said she couldn't make it. Ted Kagan, I see you. And I see you waving your hand. I'll unmute you.
Ted Kagan is here.
Hi, Ted.
Hi.
Okay, and then Winona Garcia.
Hi, good morning. I'm here.
Hi, Winona. Marissa Lucera.
Morning.
Good morning. Elsa Caballero. Todd Shaw or Ed Hershey from Home of Guiding Hands. I don't think I saw either of them come through. Anthony DeSalis.
I'm here.
Hi, there you go. And Melanie declined. Elder Help Claudia Gavin or Nancy Kawanuka. Are you guys here? No. Megan Schmidt.
Here.
Okay, you said Arun was not here. Vasi Lorenska.
Here.
Hi, Vasi. Jay Jay Washburn.
I am here.
Hi, Jay. Charles Main. Charles Main or Robert.
Can you hear me?
Oh, hey, Charles.
Oh, okay, you can hear me. I called in as well, so I guess I had to unmute both.
Yeah, I think when you're called in on the phone, I can't promote you to a panelist. I can just mute and unmute you.
Okay, I'm on the 6551 number.
Okay, there's a 2842 as well. I'm not sure if that was you or Robert.
That's Robert from NCTD.
Okay, hi, Robert.
Hi.
Okay, so I've got you both in. Okay, so it looks like we do have a quorum. So thank you, everybody. And so just a couple quick notes before we get started. This meeting is being recorded. Lastly, because this is a new process for all, I'm going to go over some instructions for both council members and members of the public to participate today. For SDAC members, if you would like to speak or provide a comment, notify staff by 1, clicking your camera on, or 2, by raising your hand. Please make sure to unmute your microphone to speak. And if you are not speaking, please make sure that your microphone is muted and that your camera is off. For clarity of the record, please identify yourself each time you speak. Please only use the chat box if you are having technical difficulties. For voting, by state law, all votes in a teleconference meeting must be by roll call vote. After there has been a motion and a second, I will call for the vote of each member individually, and that member will be unmuted to vote. At the conclusion of voting, the chair will announce the result. For members of the public who are virtually attending this meeting may comment by raising their hands in Zoom. To do so, click on the raised hand icon at the bottom of the toolbar. If you are participating by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. When the chair recognizes you, you will be unmuted by staff and can make your comment. For every agenda item, the chair must request public comments, and this must be stated clearly on the record.
Lisa, Charlene,
Hi, Charlene.
hi. To help people to raise their hands, if you're on like using the smartphone, there's 3 dots in the right-hand corner. Tap on that. It will then show you the raised hand, and you tap on the raised hand. If you're using a phone, you can do *9 to raise and *9 to lower your hand. And there's an Alt something if you're like on a Mac. But I don't have a Mac, so I don't remember that one.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Oh, we also need to state either there are none for the record or that we have public comments. For items within action, the clerk performs the roll call votes. That would be me. The chair will ask for the motion and the second and recognize members. The members themselves must speak for the record. And thank you. And please let me know if you have any questions. And Helen Elias, I saw you come through. So are you here? Just to confirm for roll call. Helen, are you here?
Yeah, she's muted.
Oh, okay.
I see her. And there's 2 chats. Now there's 1.
Okay. I'll circle back with her because we're going to have to do the roll call or the approval of the meeting minutes.
Lisa, I have a request that we go ahead and skip over to item 5 and then go back to the other items. So that's for the diversity discussion of equity statement.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, for item number 5, we have Hassan Akrada here to discuss Sandag's new equity statement. Thank you for being here, Hassan.
Of course, thank you for having me. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. And with me is Colleen Clemenson from my staff. I just want the group to know that this Friday, we're going to our board and asking them to adopt an equity statement. And I think by now you should have received the draft equity statement. If not, please let us know. I also want you to know that we welcome any suggestion to that statement. But here is the reason we think this is critical. One is I'm sure many wonder why would SANDAG do this, and I think it's about time that we acknowledge the sins of the past when it comes to transportation, the division of communities, the low-income and minorities getting the bad end of transportation investment. And it's time to try to overcome some of these sins and move forward in the future in an equitable way when it comes to transportation. Now, a statement is a statement. If it's not followed by action, concrete actions, it wouldn't mean anything. So our hope is by the board will adopt the statement this Friday. Our team led by Colleen Clemens and our planning director will adopt a methodology, a criteria that we will subject transportation investments in the region to, and hopefully all of our decisions in the future about transportation will be measured by obviously all the other stuff we're used to: congestion relief, reducing greenhouse gas emission, air quality, but also meeting the social equity goals. So we're looking forward to the board discussion this Friday, but we look forward to your input and collaboration in this. And with that, I'll turn it to Colleen to see if she want to say anything.
Thank you, Hassan. And the equity statement work is just, it's very exciting. And I think all of us have felt for a long time that this is something important for us to do. Irene McCormick, who heads up our communications team, has really led the work in terms of writing this statement, which, as you all can imagine, words are really important when we're trying to be brief. And I think, Irene, you're on, and I was hoping that we could get the statement slide up. It's not showing on my computer. Maybe it's showing on yours, others.
Yeah, I included both working drafts of the statement on the next two slides.
Great. So Irene, I don't know if you wanted to actually go through and read this statement to folks and to talk about some of the input we have received so far on it.
Yes, Colleen, thank you so much. And as an introduction, I'm Irene McCormick. I'm Director of Strategic Communications here at SANDAG. And Hassan charged us with putting together our commitment to equity statement. And the first draft that you see is what we came up with. And since then, we have gone to our community-based organizations working group, which is now called the Social Equity Working Group, and to our diversity, equity, and inclusion internal council that we have. And in the first working draft statement that you see here now on your screen, it had a list that says this includes our most vulnerable residents, and it talks about all those, the group of people. Based on a lot of the conversations that we had and the feedback we had, I'd like to bring us to the working draft number 2. And from that, I will read that to everybody so that they can hear it. We believe that when you say it out loud, it makes more of an impact than just reading it. So I'm going to take just a minute to read it to you. We hold ourselves accountable to the communities we serve. We acknowledge we have much to learn and much to change. And we firmly uphold equity and inclusion for every person in the San Diego region. This includes historically underserved, systemically marginalized groups impacted by actions and inactions at all levels of our government and society. We have an obligation to eliminate disparities and ensure that safe, healthy, accessible, and inclusive opportunities are available to everyone. In 2021, SANDAG will develop an equity action plan that will inform how we plan, prioritize, and build projects and programs, frame how we work with our communities, define how we recruit and develop our employees, guide our efforts to conduct unbiased research and interpret data, and set expectations for companies and stakeholders that work with us. We're committed to creating a San Diego region where every person who lives, works, or visits can thrive. So that's what we came up with after many conversations, of which Hassan and Colleen were part of. And we really do hope that you can have a conversation with us to let us know what you feel when you hear the statement and what you believe should be in the statement or taken out of the statement, because we really are committed to this. And later on in this program, you'll see Colleen is talking about an equity framework too for the regional plan. And that's the end of my presentation. Is there anyone who would like to speak?
Yeah, any thoughts or comments from the group about this?
I see somebody with a raised hand on the attendees list. Brian Pollard.
Hi, Brian. I've unmuted you, I think.
Yep. Good morning, everyone. I like the draft, the second draft, you guys. I was part of the first draft. I think it drills down a little bit more with some specificity, but yet it allows us room in that action plan that we're going to be working on in 2021. And I think that's what people are going to be probably looking at. And some of you, we've had this conversation already, but you know, the rubber's going to hit the road when we look at that action plan, and some communities may have some priority shifts, and that's when we'll have the heavy lift. But I think this is an excellent start. My background's in OD, organizational development. Hassan, thank you for pushing this statement, because something like this has to be top down, and knowing that to the staff that you support them in what they do. That is going to be one of the huge drivers for this effort. So again, thank you for that.
Thank you, Frank.
And like I said, it looks good to me so far, you guys.
Thank you. And you're exactly right that the rubber is going to hit the road through the action plan and hold us all accountable to the words we have here. Do you see any other hands raised?
I see Charlene Ornelas has her hand raised.
Yes, I am glad that you didn't specify any of the minority groups or the groups that have been kind of left out, because when you do, you start leaving out some of the more or less known groups that are still not having their needs met. So I'm really pleased with the draft that you presented.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, on behalf of the team, Irene and Colleen, I want to thank you for always helping us see things the right way. Onward, continuing to make sure that we do right for the 3.3 million San Diegans. So thank you for having us today. I appreciate the few minutes with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Lisa, did we want to continue with the next item, or would we go back to item 2 for the minutes?
Colleen and Tuweri, are you still on the line?
We are. We're happy to move into the framework if that makes sense, Lisa. And
Okay.
we can do that now.
Okay, sure. Let's do that.
Great.
Okay. So, you know, as you all can imagine, it's an exciting time for Sandag as we really work to emphasize equity in everything that we do. And we have shared with this group the transformational transportation vision that is being incorporated into the 2021 regional plan. And this really is all about providing true travel options to driving. And we're addressing three primary issues: traffic congestion, social equity, and meeting our state and federal mandates. The state and federal mandates call for us to address climate change and making sure that we're reducing the number of individual vehicle miles traveled that individuals need to make. We also have to work toward cleaner air for all of us. And then social equity is really getting to what Hassan was talking about. There are communities, geographic areas within our region that have been left out of investment or have had investments that have not made their communities better. So these are the things that we need to be looking at when we're talking about the social equity planning framework. And there are 5 major components that we're looking at. And so what we intend to do is, under the umbrella of the equity statement that will go to the Sandag Board of Directors this Friday, we're developing this framework for planning that actually gets incorporated into the regional plan. And it's everything from the importance of engagement, making sure that the people who are impacted are engaged in the planning process and providing meaningful input throughout that process. That we're using data to be accountable for the work that we're doing, that we're measuring the benefits of investments and the burdens of investments on communities that have had a lack of investment. And then comes what Barry Pollard was talking about. How do we actually start to prioritize our funding on projects in areas that have not had investment? And then finally, reporting on how that is doing, being honest about improvements and how they're impacting or benefiting communities. And that becomes a complete feedback loop. And so this is the loop we're talking about here. It's engagement, data and accountability. It's measuring the impacts, it's prioritizing our investments, and it's monitoring, reporting, and evolving based on what we're learning. And really, engagement happens throughout all of this. These steps are all happening continuously, and it's a continuous learning process. One of the things we've learned and known about communities that have suffered from lack of investment is really that communities and the people who live in communities know best what their communities need. And it can't be us just sitting at Sandag and deciding that. That's why this continuous learning, partnering with community members is so important. So these are 5 interreliant actions that we anticipate forming our regional social equity planning framework for the regional plan. So this actually will become a component of the regional plan, and there will be policies and how each of these are accomplished. What does engagement mean? What does data and accountability mean? How do we measure the impacts? What are those performance measures? What's our guidance in how we prioritize investments and maybe reprioritize investments based upon the locations where investments need to be made? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tueri Faola, and Tueri heads up work overseeing development of the regional plan, and she's going to give more detail on each of these components and how we envision it coming together. So with that, Tueri.
Thanks, Colleen. And thank you guys for having us here to just talk about some of the development and the work that we've started doing around equity and how we are really prioritizing social equity within the regional plan and the beginning stages of this social equity planning framework that we've developed. So Colleen's kind of given a high level overview of those 5 interreliant strategies that was on the prior slide. And I'm just going to talk to you very briefly about each one. And we're certainly open to hearing your feedback and want to hear your feedback about each of these areas and how you'd like to see us continue in this work of development of this framework, but also as we continue to develop the regional plan. So with this first one here being about engagement, you know, it's really what we're bringing to the forefront is saying that we want to ensure that there's an engagement process that's transparent, that it's fair, and that it's inclusive. And it really elevates engagement with low-income people of color, as well as people with disabilities or those with limited English early into the process and throughout the planning process in timely and meaningful ways through strategies that are respectful, as Colleen mentioned earlier, about really recognizing and knowing communities' cultural context and their expertise in using the system and in knowing their communities best, and ensuring that what we really learn from that, you know, meaningful and timely engagement translates into the solutions that we come up with. So next slide. So data accountability. We've used a lot of data throughout the regional planning process, and it's been incredibly helpful in understanding what are those critical connections throughout our region and how we should plan for transportation investments. But we also need to recognize that we need to use data to not only drive our decisions, but inform our planning process in conjunction with those thoughtful and representative community engagement ways that we talked about a slide earlier. And we do recognize that there's, you know, data is inherently biased and it often perpetuates decisions that have long divided communities and resulted in inequitable access to opportunities. But it's that we need to recognize that and really work from a human-centered design perspective. That's something that if you've seen some of our regional plan presentations, we really did use human-centered design to inform our planning process. But we want to continue to do that and to have frequent and open dialogues with our community members, with our partners such as you, and to really continue to develop those partnerships to identify where those biases in data are at, to account for them, to correct them, and if it's feasible to even collect new data so that we can resolve those inadequacies. Next slide. And then we also need to measure the impacts of the work that we're doing. So we understand that it's not only just measuring it, but it's really understanding the benefits of the plans and the programs and projects that we do, but also what are those trade-offs? Because there's always 2 sides that we need to really understand when we're measuring those impacts of all of our plans, our programs, or the projects, and to the communities that they should be serving. So in working closely with those communities and communicating and soliciting feedback from them. So that way it's, again, informing our decision-making process. Next slide. And then really, how do we prioritize those investments? And based on the understanding that we gain of community priorities, of the local, state, federal goals and regulations that we have to comply with, we'll begin to establish that new methodology that Hassan and Colleen talked about earlier that allows us to really prioritize investments in our plans and projects and programs that are projected to benefit the people with low incomes, people of color, disabilities, or those with limited English, such as prioritizing those investments that'll provide access to jobs, education, healthcare. A lot of this work is what we've been focused on in the regional plan, but we need to make sure that we're looking at how to take it even a step further and do it through all levels of our plans, projects, and programs. And then last slide is on monitoring, reporting, and how we evolve through our process. This is, you know, as we conduct all of our ongoing monitoring and reporting to evaluate those actual benefits or potentially those negative impacts that happen to people that we're looking at through our plans, projects, and programs as they're implemented, we need to understand those outcomes of this reporting to inform all of our future plans and to make sure that we're learning and that we're learning from the process that we implement it. So those methodologies that we come up with, we need to monitor, report, and we need to also be open to evolving as we learn new things and making sure that we're not letting this be the end of the conversation, but this is really the start of it, and that we want to make sure that it's continual learning throughout, as you saw in the circle, we're continuous learning throughout, but also that we're continually engaging so that we're continuing to evolve in how we do all of our plans, projects, and we prioritize those for our communities. And so a lot of this that we've talked about here, it's come from our conversations with our working groups. Earlier, we mentioned that we talked about this with our community-based organization working group, now renamed our social equity working group. We've been talking about this and doing some of this with other members of working groups, and then just really reflecting on past practices and where we know that there are lessons to be learned. And so we're happy to come here today and talk with you about this, and certainly want to listen and hear your feedback on this process as we did with the equity statement earlier. So that concludes my presentation, and be happy to take any questions or hear any feedback that you have for us.
Thank you so much. Does any of our members have any comments?
Hi, this is Anthony DeSalis with the ARC of San Diego. I'm glad to see that the SANDAG is looking at equity, looking at it from this point of view. The ARC of San Diego predominantly serves people with disabilities here in San Diego County, throughout the county. And it's important to understand that the people that we serve truly are dependent upon public transportation here in San Diego County. And one of the major barriers that individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities have to employment is the inability to achieve employment because of transportation issues, that first mile transportation issues, scheduling times that transportation runs, the amount of time it takes for individuals to get from point A to point B in their travel. And I think that is also representative of many other groups who are in the lower socioeconomic classes that depend so heavily upon public transportation to ensure that they either get educational opportunities with community colleges or employment opportunities. So I think it's really a positive step moving forward with this type of action. But again, it's going to really depend on the details and the funding that is put into place as to whether or not those outcomes are really going to affect everyone. So just my opinion.
Yeah. No, thank you for your comment. We certainly agree with you on everything that you're saying, and we're looking at that as well. And it's something we've been hearing and want to continue to keep hearing so that we can reflect that in the work that we're doing.
Great, thank you, Anthony, for sharing. I see one more member, I believe, with their hand up. I'm searching. Heidi?
Yeah, hi. I was thinking about 3 forms of omission. That I love what's being said. This is very pleasing and exciting. I wanted to mention that the 3 forms of omission that I have a concern about are: 1, asking questions of those affected. I see that you have engagement on there, and that's great. You got to really do it. I'm talking about what's happened in the past. So here we go. The second one is to listen, to listen, to hear, to incorporate. And the third one is omission to act on what is learned. I can think of a few issues that I personally have brought up over the years, over and over and over again, and nothing changes, and there's no reason why not. So I love it that there's so much engagement, there's so much thought going into this. I want to I'm anxious to see how it plays out. So those are my comments, and thank you.
Thank you, Clyde. Any other member comments? I'm not seeing any. We can go to the attendees. Brian Pollard. I believe you're on mute.
I would like to respond to the last comment. And what was her name?
Clyde?
Clyde, yeah. I think Clyde, I too have had those same questions early on in the process. I'm one of the CBOs that work with Sandag, and it's the New Equity Group. And I have to tell you that this is the most receptive that Sandag has been in years. And I remember, for instance, when Sandag was full of white-collared sort of individuals sitting in the boardroom, and I don't know, maybe about 3 years ago, I turned around and there was a lot of community there. And I think that's got a lot to do with leadership and the shift in direction of the city itself, the recent elections. So if there is ever going to be an opportunity to make some of these things reverse the systematic issues that have occurred over the decades, now is the time. And so I know the CBOs in the group, the community benefit organizations in the group, feels that way as well. And we represent a lot of the underserved communities within the region. That includes up in Vista, Escondido, San Isidro, Southeast San Diego, City Heights, portions of Linda Vista. So we've done a pretty good job at it. So keep an eye on everything, but I think we're in a good poised position to move this forward effectively. And that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you both, Clyde and Brian. Do any other members or attendees have any questions or comments on this item? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you so much, Sandag. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, how you say your first name again?
Tueri.
Tueri, thank you so much.
Yes, no problem. Thank you guys for having us.
All right, Lisa, should we go ahead and move on to item 7 on the digital diversity, or should we go back up to public comment?
Antoinette, are you here?
I am here. Can you hear and see me?
Yes. Yeah, maybe we should just go ahead and do digital divide, and then we can go back and do minutes.
Great, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, Lisa, do you have my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Antoinette Meyer, and I am the Director of Mobility and Innovation at Sandag. And today I'm going to be talking about the digital divide, which is a topic that's gotten a lot of attention over the last year, and rightfully so. Although it's a long-standing issue, the pandemic has definitely brought into focus the very serious impacts of the digital divide on unconnected and underconnected residents. You might be asking yourself, what does the digital divide have to do with regional planning? And the answer is actually quite a lot. Broadband connectivity touches on so many areas, from economic development to public health and safety, education, social equity, sustainability, and even transportation. So for this reason, policymakers at all levels of government have been scrambling this year to get everyone online. Today, I'm going to share what some of the activities are at the state level. Lisa, if you can go back, I'm still on the first slide. I'll let you know when when to change. Thank you. I'm going to let you know about some of the activities that are occurring at the state level and then in our own region. And then specifically, I want to talk about our work to mobilize stakeholders and establish a digital divide task force and another equity activity that SANDAG is undertaking, and that's the development of a regional digital equity strategy and action plan. So I'm sure you're familiar with the term digital divide, but for the purposes of the presentation today, we are talking about the gap between the members of society who do not have access to reliable broadband service, and that's primarily rural communities and low-income households, and those who do. Next slide. Before I dive into the details of the digital divide, though, I want to do a little bit of a broadband 101 lesson just to make sure we all know what broadband is and what's actually considered adequate service. At the most basic level, broadband is a high-speed internet connection that's provided via a variety of wired and wireless networks. Next slide. High speed is a really important part of the definition because not all internet connections are technically broadband. The Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, which is the agency that regulates communications, defines a broadband connection as one with a minimum download speed of 25 megabits per second and a minimum upload speed of 3 megabits per second. So in theory, at these speeds, you should be able to stream a video in your home with a few other connected devices working simultaneously and not have any buffering issues. But many would argue that those speeds are not at all adequate in today's environment when we are all at home together, working, learning, shopping, and socializing online. The map on this slide shows the areas in the region that meet the speed threshold and those who don't. So the areas in the blue do not, and you'll see that it's a lot of our rural areas, but there are pockets within the western, more urbanized portion of the region as well. Next slide, please. There are multiple methods for accessing the internet, and this graphic helps to illustrate the complicated broadband landscape. DSL transmits data over copper telephone lines, and while it's widely available, it tends to be slower and it struggles from network congestion. So when there's a lot of people online, it's slower for everyone. Cable transmits data over the same coaxial cables that bring you television. It's the most prominent broadband technology in densely populated areas. It's definitely faster than DSL, but it's not as widely available in rural communities, and it also suffers from network congestion. I'm sure you've all experienced that during the pandemic. Fiber is the gold standard of broadband connections. It is incredibly fast and it can handle nearly unlimited amounts of data and users, but it's expensive to deploy, and many companies don't want to invest in fiber in areas where there are very few customers. Wireless connects to the internet using a radio link. It can be either fixed or mobile. Fixed transmits data from an antenna to your home or to a business. Mobile transmits through technologies like portable modems or mobile phones. And while hotspots have certainly provided a good temporary solution to underconnected families during the pandemic, mobile broadband is not considered an adequate substitute for a fixed connection. It's just not as reliable. And then last is satellite, which is primarily used to serve remote areas that don't have DSL cable or fiber. The problem is that it tends to be slow, it's expensive, and it's not particularly reliable. Broadband infrastructure consists of a first, middle, and last mile. So many of the same terms we use for transit access. The first mile is the backbone, and that's the larger fiber optic network that's capable of transmitting a lot of data over really long distances. The middle mile links that backbone to the internet service provider's core network. And then the last mile brings the connection to your home or to a business. And all of the pieces of broadband network are really important, but much of the focus when we talk about the digital divide is on the lack of a last mile connection, just like transit, which is particularly an issue for rural areas. Next slide, please. I think we would all agree that broadband has become crucial to our lives. You know, while we've had a growing dependence on the internet over recent years, the pandemic has really made it an essential utility. Distance learning, telehealth, remote work, job searches, civic and social engagement, and accessing emergency services or social services all require a reliable internet connection. And residents without connectivity are definitely at a disadvantage, and the digital divide has exacerbated some of the existing social and economic inequities. Next slide. While maybe not as obvious, closing the digital divide is also critical to the future of transportation and the ability to fully benefit from technology advancements that can drastically improve transportation operations and safety, and that bring our regional vision for the 5 big moves to life. Broadband is also a green technology. During the pandemic, we've seen how working from home and accessing services remotely can drastically reduce car travel and the associated greenhouse gas emissions. And it also provides local jurisdictions with the broadband infrastructure that they need to advance smart city initiatives that can make municipal operations and services much more sustainable and efficient. Next slide. So what does the digital divide look like in our state and region? Well, in the state of California, there are over 2 million Californians that don't have access to high-speed broadband service and 8.4 million residents that don't have a broadband subscription in their home. Next slide. And in the San Diego region, 23% of lower income households do not have a broadband subscription, likely because they cannot afford it. Up to 40% of students in some of our local school districts are underconnected, or students don't have a device to be able to connect to the internet with at home and participate in distance learning. And then a much larger percentage of the county's rural areas, 42%, don't have fixed internet versus 97% of people who live in urban areas having access to fixed internet. Next slide. So in August, Governor Newsom signed an executive order to bridge the digital divide, and the full executive order, I believe, was provided as an attachment to your staff report if you're interested. But the order directs state agencies to pursue a statewide goal of 100 megabits per second download speeds, and it required the development of a broadband action plan, which was released at the end of December. The executive order outlines actions across a variety of state agencies to accelerate mapping and data collection so we can really start to identify and understand where broadband gaps exist. It directs agencies to also develop funding programs and other strategies for rapid deployment and adoption of high-speed internet. And with regards to transportation, the order directed the state transportation agencies to incorporate the installation of fiber conduit into all feasible transportation projects, and then to coordinate with internet service providers. In addition to this executive order, there's actually 2 other bills in legislature right now that address the digital divide and broadband. So this is really becoming an important policy discussion. Next slide. The ultimate goal is to create digital equity across the state. And when we talk about digital equity, we're talking about both expanding affordable access to broadband and then ensuring that everyone can afford to subscribe for broadband service and has access to a device to be able to connect to the internet and take advantage of that broadband service. So the digital divide goes beyond just broadband availability, but it also focuses on increasing adoption of broadband service. Next slide. There's a lot that's happening in our region to both address the immediate crisis and then to plan for digital equity longer term. And this slide highlights some of those recent activities. The City of San Diego has been doing a lot in coordination with San Diego Futures Foundation to get computers to households. Also, the City of San Diego is providing safe places with Wi-Fi and laptop access in community centers and libraries. The City of Chula Vista is really leading. They actually adopted their own digital equity and inclusion plan and a telecommunications master plan late last year. And then the San Diego County Office of Education and the San Diego Foundation have been granting funding to school districts to get students access to the internet, get everyone online so they can participate in distance learning. This is not an exhaustive list by any means. The private sector has also stepped up to offer some programs during this time of need. But I think what this demonstrates that we could really benefit from regional coordination so we can maximize all of the resources that are going into bridging the digital divide. Next slide. Sandag is also involved with a number of efforts to expand broadband infrastructure. Several years ago, we entered into an agreement with the other transit and transportation operators, Caltrans, MTS, and NCTD, to share fiber and create redundancy and enhance network reliability for transportation. And then more recently, we're entering into a partnership with a communications company called Media3. It's a mutually beneficial fiber sharing agreement that will expand broadband service in the South Bay communities. We're also starting to proactively incorporate broadband into transportation plans like the regional plan and corridor studies. The state identified that lack of advanced planning as a real obstacle to broadband deployment because it's often an afterthought and it's too late to coordinate with internet service providers to gain access to construction projects in the public right-of-way to install fiber. And then last, we're participating in a Southern California coalition of public and private sector organizations and leaders that have all come together during the pandemic to begin to develop a framework for streamlining the deployment of broadband infrastructure and better preparing Southern California for future pandemics or other major emergencies. A big focus of this collaboration has been on creating consistency with broadband policies and permitting practices across jurisdictions in Southern California. And we've also worked to develop a draft model broadband resolution for local and regional agencies to adopt. I'll be taking that resolution to our board of directors this Friday, actually. Adopting resolutions like this really demonstrates commitment to bridging the digital divide, and that can better position our region to take advantage of the likely funding opportunities and partnerships that will be available. Next slide. And then to build upon this work, we are creating our own regional cross-sector task force that will provide technical input on the development of a regional digital equity strategy and action plan, and also to help really coordinate all of the various efforts that are occurring across the region. The first step in developing the regional strategy is conducting research and collecting data that will help us to identify broadband access gaps, those local policy and permitting inconsistencies, and other challenges with broadband deployment. We'll also be doing a national scan for best practices with digital equity and broadband deployment. And all of this research will help to provide focus to our digital equity strategy and action plan, which we intend to complete by the end of the calendar year. Next slide. And the primary objectives for this effort are to develop those consistent broadband-friendly policies and practices in the region. You know, we're learning that one of the primary barriers for broadband currently are prohibitive policies and that lack of proactive planning and coordination. So we hope to make some real progress there. We also want to ensure that broadband is proactively included in plans and projects. And this is not just Sandag's projects, but also city projects as well. And we want to foster that cross-sector and cross-agency collaboration to make the most of all of the resources that are going into bridging the digital divide. We've found that many agencies are doing a lot of good work on this issue, but it's siloed. And then we want to prepare for funding opportunities. We know that federal stimulus funding will include support for broadband, and there is also funding expected at the state level. So we want to be organized and prepared for those opportunities. And then last but not least, of course, as a transportation planning agency responsible for preparing the region for the future of transportation, we see this as a real opportunity to accelerate some of our intelligent transportation projects like the Next OS. And it also will help us to reduce VMT and meet our telework goals by making more trips, virtual trips that don't impact our roadways. So that concludes my presentation for today. I would love to hear from all of you. Maybe there are some specific activities that you're aware of or involved with related to the digital divide. And of course, I'm always happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.
Antoinette, it's great to hear about what's going on out there under this and learn more about what the community is doing with this. Does any member have any comments that they would like to share or questions? See any from members? Okay, here we go, Clyde.
Okay, hi, thank you. That's so exciting. It just looks like it just really purports wonderful things for the future. I do wonder, I'm not sure, but I thought I heard that the actual studies and kind of all the organizing work is expected to be completed by the end of this calendar year. Is that correct? We don't expect to have actually any action taken. I mean, on the ground, get it in place action taken this year. That's my one question. And I'm also concerned, I'm pretty sure that it's all handled, but I would just put in a prop for making sure that outreach is going to people who can't afford or can't get access right now. I know of individuals who are paying far more than they can afford just to be able to have access, and yet, as you very clearly stated, medical care, job possibilities, all kinds of necessary connections are there. So anyway, that's it. I just one question and one prop. Thank you.
Thank you, Clyde. So there will be steps along the way. We want to have our strategy and action plan 100% complete and adopted by the board of directors by the end of the calendar year. But this Friday, I'll be going to the board and asking them to adopt a resolution, sort of supporting regional collaboration and work towards closing the digital divide. And I'll be asking them to adopt similar resolutions within their jurisdictions. So that's really setting the stage in our region. And then the research that I mentioned, the research work that we're doing to identify what those gaps are, and best practices, policy inconsistencies, all of those barriers that are preventing broadband expansion and adoption in the region. That will be done this spring. So that'll really provide a lot of clarity around what we need to focus on in the strategy and the action plan. So there's going to be a lot of work, and I'll come back and give updates to this group as we go along over the course of the year. And then in terms of your question about outreach, absolutely. And what we've tried to do with the task force is really have it represent a very diverse group of, public safety, public health, organizations that serve, seniors and low-income residents, so that we're getting the best information about why folks might not be able to access the internet now. What are those issues that we need to be addressing in the action plan? So hopefully that answers your question. Great, thank you.
Okay, we have a comment from member Catherine Manis. She is asking about connecting to seniors as well, and especially the most in need. So will that mainly be through those jurisdictions that will maybe reach out to their senior communities?
So our task force is made up of public agencies, nonprofit organizations, community-based organizations that are serving low-income populations, seniors, rural communities. So yes, we definitely understand that seniors are a portion of the region that may not be may need digital literacy training. Maybe they don't know how to access the internet. So that's definitely part of the strategy.
Thank you, great. Any other member comments before we go to attendees? Clyde? I think you're still on mute, Clyde.
So complicated. So I just wanted to comment that I think that the questions that are asked need to be framed in more than can you afford it and do you not have it, yeah. But are you letting other expenses go in order to keep? So is it an either or kind of situation? Mm-hmm. Are you not able to pay your SDG&E because you needed to pay your Cox bill or whatever? So I think that it's not just that there are people who can't get access. There are people who are giving up food money or heat money or whatever in order to have internet service.
It's a very good point, Clyde. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Clyde. Charlene.
Yes, one other thing that we need to keep in mind is that having the internet available and the right speeds available and everything else has a little catch in it, because there are a lot, especially seniors and other people with disabilities is another big group of them, who can't access the internet in the first place. Mm-hmm. So they either don't have the equipment or they don't have the knowledge, or what's being put up on the internet is not in a usable format for people to access, and I mean referring to things that are put in picture type formats instead of text formats. If you use text tags to web pages and stuff, then a person who's blind can use a screen reader to read it. If you don't, I have a blank screen.
Yeah.
But that's the other part of getting onto the internet, and because it doesn't matter how big you make it, and how wide you make it, how fast you make it. If I can't access it, I'm still out.
No, that's excellent feedback. I'm definitely going to include that.
This is Anthony DeSalis with the Arc of San Diego again. During this pandemic, we actually found, again, we serve people predominantly with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And we actually found that remote learning, the accessibility for people with disabilities to the internet has actually created a great opportunity for people. The problem that we found was, again, individuals not having equipment available, that the speeds that they were operating with were too slow for their needs. And we've been working diligently with individuals to try to assist them in getting the equipment that they need. But that is a group, again, that for us, we learned that this was really a meaningful opportunity for them to be able to access remote learning, classes, socialization, an opportunity to contact friends all through the internet during this pandemic, which would have, would have greatly isolated this group of people, even more so than they were isolated previously. So again, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony. Any other member comments? I don't see any members, so we'll go ahead and go to the attendees. Sharon?
I'm unmuting. I have a question, Antoinette. There were a lot of acronyms you used, and that is a little bit more challenging for those of us who do not know what the acronyms represent, the acronyms. So perhaps you could explain on that later for your next presentation, wherever that may be. The other question I do have is the task force. Is it open to engage with the public? Can other members still join that task force? That's number one. And then how will this integrate with MTS? For example, Los Angeles Public Transit and Orange County has Wi-Fi on the buses. How is that going to work for myself? Now, I have internet at home because I don't have cable TV and I don't have a smartphone. So I have to sacrifice some things to get one thing. And I find the internet to be more useful to me than cable television or than a smartphone. But when I go out into the community and I'm at the bus stop, I have no access to text for alerts because I don't have any device like that and I don't have internet. How is that going to play out?
So Sharon, let me touch on your first comment, and thank you for calling me out for acronyms. I always try to scrub my presentations and make sure that they're not in there, at least that I define them, but I'm probably guilty as charged. So I appreciate you making me aware of that, and will go through my presentations in more detail in the future. And then your second question about coordination, or actually your second question was about the task force. And yes, our first meeting of the task force is on the 28th. This is, it's a technical working groups, different from, the more formal working groups at SANDAG. So it's a temporary group that's really just focused on providing input on the action plan, and it is open. So I'm happy to get the information to you about that meeting, but it's not as formal as like this particular working group and some of the other working groups at SANDAG. Then your third question was about public transit and Wi-Fi on public transit. And I think, that's definitely something that we'll be exploring as part of the action plan. How can we get Wi-Fi at transit stations and on transit vehicles to, make sure that when people are in transit that they can use that time productively.
And especially now because they do not have any schedules on the public transit buses. So I'm at a loss without planning my whole trip for the whole day. And if I have to make a change in the trip, I don't know when buses are coming.
Okay, that's good feedback. Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon. We have another comment from Brian Pollard. Brian, you may be on mute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Antoinette, I was thinking of good information, and I'm glad you brought it up. I guess I got a question about the map that you showed us earlier with the yellow squares. What did the yellow squares represent?
I think blue is the portions of the region that don't meet the speed threshold that's been established by the Federal Communications Commission, that 25 megabits per second, and then yellow are areas that do.
So within that areas that do need it, I'm sure there is some sort of a map for the optic fiber inventory of those areas.
That's a challenge. We're working on trying to put that together, at least for the municipal fiber networks. So we're working with jurisdictions in the region to get the latest maps and information about where they have fiber investments. But from the private sector, that's a little bit more difficult to access. So I mentioned in the executive order, one of the mandates was for the California Public Utilities Commission to really work on mapping and data that will help jurisdictions and agencies like SANDAG identify where those gaps might be with the fiber network. So getting data on broadband is actually really tricky. And even, the data in this map might not be as detailed and specific as we'd like to see. So we understand, for example, that if one household in a census tract has internet at 25 megabits or higher, then it shows that the whole census tract is served.
Right.
So it's not by household, right? So even this is probably overestimating the percentage of the region that has access to what's considered, adequate broadband service.
So my hunch is that any mapping for urban areas and in the denser communities, it's just going to be a validation what we already know, that you and I could probably sit and go through the city of San Diego and have a pretty good hunch of where the fiber is and where it isn't. And that to me is not only a concern of existing services and computer and digital access, but what makes it sort of more important to me is that there is current development going on in a lot of different areas, including the big 5 moves, that there's going to be a lot of iOS requirements in order to get some of these services.
Yep.
And we're going to be late at the table again. If that's not addressed, like yesterday, when plans and designs for the iOS improvements and the big 5 moves and certainly in taking care of the digital divide. So I guess what I'm saying is that we got stuff to take care of historically, but let's not ignore planning that is currently going on.
Yeah, that's a good point, Brian. And that's why we are really proactively incorporating fiber into plans. So it's definitely incorporated into the regional plan. It's something that, we developed cost estimates for. And now we're also making sure that it's integrated into those CMCPs, those corridor studies. And then we want that to be a best practice for not just SANDAG, but for, local jurisdictions too, and their own plans. And then that cooperation with the private sector when we are doing projects, construction projects, appropriate construction projects in the public right of way, getting fiber in the ground when we're already digging things up for construction. That's another best practice that we really want to bring to the region.
Sure, and don't exclude SDG&E because they we put those doggone poles under the ground at the same time. And
yeah, that keeps coming up, Barry. SDG&E. Yep.
That too is an equity issue. I mean,
yeah.
you don't find these poles in other parts of the city. I mean, it's and then there's no plan per se to underground any of these. And if it is, it's written in pencil. Because I've lived here over 30 some years, man, and we're on the schedule. I keep getting told. I'm running out of time.
Yeah.
So, and thank you for doing this. I mean, you've done a lot of work, I can tell just with the information you have. So I'm looking forward to the 28th.
Thanks. Looking forward to seeing you there.
Thank you, Brian. I'm not seeing any other comments from members or attendees. Thank you so much, Antoinette, for your time and the presentation, and thank you everyone for your comments. All right, I think we can go back up to item 2, which was the member comments and the public comments.
We need
minutes. Sorry, okay, item 2. So for the approval of November 9 minutes from 2020. Did anyone have any? Did any members have any comments on the minutes, or did anyone want to move for approval? Heidi?
Charlene?
I just wanted to comment that in the your little list of those who others who attended, you should have Ethel Miranda on there. Her name does not appear, and yet she did speak in the meeting itself. So just a little correction there.
Thank you, Clyde. This is Lisa. I'll make sure the minutes get updated.
Cool. Thanks.
Charlene?
Charlene?
Yes, I'll move to accept the minutes as corrected.
Great, thank you, Charlene. And do we have a second?
Oh, I see Clyde's hand raised. I don't know if she had another comment.
Yeah, I was just going to second Charlene's motion.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Clyde.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and take roll for approval of the minutes.
Okay. Ilse Carey? Do you approve?
I approve.
Okay. Kent Rodricks?
Approve.
Lori Seagram?
Approve.
Okay, Charlene, you motioned. Catherine Manis?
Approve.
Thank you. Winona Garcia? Is Winona still on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I had a problem hitting my mute button. I approve.
Oh, no worries. Thank you. Marissa Lucero?
I approve.
Thank you. Anthony DeSalis?
I approve.
Megan?
Approve.
Vasi Lorenska?
Yes.
Jay Washburn?
Approve.
Charles Main?
Approve.
Robert Gibo?
Approved.
Okay, and then Clyde, you seconded. Wayne Landon?
Approve.
Okay, and Ted Kagan? Ted?
Ted Kagan, yes.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Okay, so the meeting minutes are approved as corrected.
Great, thank you. All right, so we can go ahead and go to item 2, or is it 3 now? 3, public comment, sorry. I just wanted to ask that members and attendees keep their comments brief. We still have several items to go, and I know we're at about 11:22 now. So do we have any member comments? Okay, I don't see any. And attendees, we have one from Sharon.
Yes, there's a state of MTS presentation with Nathan Fletcher on the 21st. I'm hoping when we get to the MTS portion of this agenda that MTS will talk about that.
Thank you, Sharon. Do we have any other member or attendee comments? Okay, great. Item number 4 is the staff report.
Hi, this is Lisa Madsen. I have just a few quick announcements. Zach Rivera asked me to announce that additional Section 5310 funding through the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2021. The San Diego region will be apportioned $412,817 of the $50 million available. Sandag staff is working with the FTA to seek clarity on eligibility requirements, schedule of funding, and other details. And also for Cycle 11, staff is slated to present draft funding recommendations for the Cycle 11 call for projects in March to the ITALC, Transportation Committee, and Board of Directors. And then Jack Christensen asked me to announce that Sandag and Caltrans are developing a comprehensive multimodal corridor plan, or CMCP, for the South Bay to Sorrento corridor. The South Bay to Sorrento SB2S project aims to guide development of an innovative transportation network, transforming the way people and goods move through the San Diego region. The CMCP evaluates all travel modes and transportation facilities in a defined corridor, highways and freeways, parallel and connecting roadways, transit, including bus rapid transit, light rail and intercity rail, etc., pathways and bikeways. Completing the CMCPs will help the San Diego region compete for local, state, and federal funds. The SB2S CMCP is anticipated to be finalized in late 2021. Sandag and Caltrans District 11 are hosting their first virtual public engagement meeting through Zoom on Thursday, January 28th, 2021, from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. During this meeting, the project team will introduce the comprehensive multimodal corridor plan for the South Bay to Sorrento region. The team will explain how the development of an innovative transportation network will transform the way people and goods move through the San Diego region. Time will be dedicated during the meeting for people and goods. Time will be dedicated through the meeting for attendees to share information about their corridor challenges, participate in surveys and polls, and remark on what is working well. The meeting will include details on how the public can submit their comments and provide input for the development of the corridor study through a virtual engagement hub. For more information on the South Bay to Sorrento CMCP planning effort, visit the Sandag CMCP website, the virtual engagement hub, or download the project fact sheet. And I can email this to the attendees after the meeting. Lastly, and this kind of piggybacks on what was discussed earlier from Colleen and Tueri, and as well as Hassan's comments. Sandag recently formed an internal diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI council, and I'm happy to announce that I was one of 12 Sandag employees appointed to this council. The council will play an important role in developing Sandag's equity action plan and will serve as both an advisory and working group. And so I'm hoping to serve as a conduit between the DEI Council and the SDAC. And so hopefully this will keep the momentum going from the equity statement and planning framework that Hassan, Colleen, and Tuwari presented earlier today. So if you have any further comments or questions about diversity and equity or the statement or the framework, you can always reach out to me, and I'm sure I'll be in touch with you as the project keeps gaining momentum. But that was it for me. Brian, I don't know if you had any comments or anything.
No, nothing additional.
Okay. I think that's it for staff report then.
Okay, great, thank you. Did anybody have any comments or questions for Lisa on the staff report? I don't see any. All right, I think we can go to item number 7 now, which is, item 8, the update on next generation fare system and possible fare changes with Brian.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
And do you see my screen with the proposed fare changes slide?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm going to talk about the, there we go, I was getting feedback. I'm going to talk about the proposed fare changes that MTS and NCTD are pursuing. Hang on, I'm trying to click through. Today's agenda, I'm just going to go over the fare change proposals, talk about the timeline for public comments and board meeting dates and times, give an overview of Pronto, the next generation fare system, and then take your comments and answer any questions you may have. And just a quick overview as well. We've given these presentations to at 3 public meetings over the last week. So this is a similar presentation that I gave at the other one. So I'm sure for those of you who attended those public meetings, I appreciate it. And I apologize for you having to listen to this another time. So right now, and again, these are just proposals. We're just getting public input at this time. MTS and NCTD's boards will hear an information item this Thursday at their board meetings to hear about these. Really, it's more about the Pronto fare system and then possible fare change proposals. We have a number of proposals on the table that they can look at, weigh in, and provide feedback on, and then they'll vote on them later in February. So again, these are just proposals that came out of staff. No elected officials have seen these yet or weighed in on them yet. So they will Thursday. So if you have the chance to go to their board meetings or listen to their board meetings Thursday, I recommend you do so. So I said all that because there are some increases in some of the proposals, and I know a lot of people aren't happy with the word increase during the COVID pandemic times and just increases at any time. And Hassan is a big proponent of never trying to push fare increases and is actually trying to push fare decreases through various policies and funding mechanisms that SANDAG can help find for both agencies to try and reduce fares and get more ridership in the coming years, especially during COVID and post-COVID. So again, starting back with one of the proposals is reducing the one-way cash fare for the youth to align with the reduced SDM cash fare down to $1.25. Another proposal is increasing the adult one-way cash fare on the trolley, Sprinter, and most local bus services from $2.50 to $2.75, including the best fare capabilities for one-day and monthly passes, except for Coaster. And I'll talk about best fare capabilities because that's one of the biggest functions that's coming out of the new Pronto system and will be a benefit to a lot of riders who pay cash every day. And then if the adult one-way fare is raised from $2.50 to $2.75, MTS Access and NCT Lift would be raised from $5 to $5.50. Scenario B on their proposals would be to also increase the monthly pass price from $72 to $75 on the adult monthly and the best fare, and $23 to $24 for youth and SDM monthly and best fares. And no changes are proposed for Rapid Express or Coaster. Scenario C, which is the one that Hassan is pushing for, and MTS and NCTD are listening to now, and the boards will hear it. And we all hope that we move forward with that, would be to just reduce the one-way cash fares on the youth, include the best fare capabilities, again, which I'll talk about in a second, and have no increases at this time. So what is Pronto? Pronto will replace the Compass card system. They're looking at a May or June start on that. It's the reason to replace the Compass card system is Compass was started in about 2009, although the technology was actually developed, in 2006 or so. It took a while to implement. It's the software and hardware is really at the end of its useful life. If you know software and technology, anything 10 years or older is really kind of old. And so the Pronto system and the company that they're using to implement this Pronto system has some great new technologies. And some of the good functionalities out of that is to just add on new things easily. So, if new technology comes out in a couple of years, they've made it so that the company and the Pronto system would be able to easily add those on without having to get charges of $2 million or something to add that technology. That's kind of what the problem was with the current Compass card and the contract that they had with Cubic, the company who built the Compass software and hardware. So also with Pronto, the riders will always get the best possible fare. I'll give a couple examples in a couple minutes on how best fares work. But the idea is that for cash riders, they'd never pay more in a day or in a month than the day or monthly pass price. It'll have real-time account management online or on the mobile app. So unlike the Compass system, which kind of has a day or so software lag when people buy a pass online or do things like that, sometimes it takes overnight for the buses to all get that information plugged into the bus and onto the fare box. This is all real time. So if you buy a pass online, your card will automatically know about that. And if you tap it on a bus, the bus will read that card and know it right then. You'll be able to track progress towards your day and monthly passes using that best fare capability online or with the mobile app. There'll be online verification of eligibility for reduced fares. So this is a little different with how they do it. I believe that that's their plan is to start with the online verification. Most SDM and youth riders, their eligibility would just move over with Pronto. There's more information on that will be coming out in the coming months from MTS and NCTD. Another big part of this Pronto card system is the ability to add a lot more retail locations. They're hoping for upwards of 400 plus retail locations. Just to give you an idea, currently there's only about 55 with the Compass card. And you can always do, the transit station ticket machines and all the other places. We encourage you to visit ridepronto.com for more information in the coming months. MTS and NCTD will be working on updating that site. And as we get the fare proposal changes out of the way, they'll be able to start really moving forward with getting the Pronto system out there. And you'll hear a lot more from their marketing and communications teams on exactly the details of how you'll convert your Compass card to a Pronto card and all that. And they'll really be getting that website up to speed. So how will Pronto work? Another thing is it'll give riders the best possible fare. Riders who load money into their Pronto account would just have a one-way fare deducted from their balance each time they board a public transit vehicle. And again, I'll give a couple examples here in a second. You'd never be charged more than the value of a day pass or a monthly pass once you've deducted the value of those passes over the course of a day or a month. And again, the coaster's going to stick with their day or monthly passes. They won't be part of the best value capabilities. And the reason for that is they have their zones and all that, and the coding and you have to get riders to tap on and off every trip to make sure that they're all paying the correct zone fares and all that. So for the time being, coaster's not moving forward with the best value. They'll still have their monthly pass prices. Riders will still be able to purchase a calendar monthly pass in advance if they choose. The employers that have that buy passes from MTS and NCD will still have that probably still going forward, they'll still just buy a monthly pass price and give it to their employees. Same as most of the colleges and universities, they'll still have their monthly or semester passes that they work with the two agencies on. But and again, yeah, riders will be able to load money into their Pronto account online in the new Pronto mobile app, at the ticket machines, at stations, at the transit store or customer service centers, and at those participating retail outlets that they'll be working with in the near future. So an example of best fare, here's one for SDM, a senior disabled Medicare rider who's traveling 3 days a week, taking 2 trips a day and using 13 days of travel for the month as this example. Today, if the rider is paying cash for each trip, they'd pay $1.25. Oops, what happened? There we go. They'd pay $1.25 a trip, which would add up to $2.50 a day. Riding 13 days at $2.50 a day, that would add up to $32.50. With the Pronto system, the SDM or even youth riders who would have the same fare, they would just load $7.50 a week into their Pronto account, either by cash or all those other ways I talked about. Week 1, $1.25 would be deducted for each of their 6 trips. So $7.50 would be deducted for that first week each time they rode. And then week 2, the same thing. Now it would add up to $15. The third week, $7.50 more would be deducted, for example, and they'd be up to $22.50. And then once they got, that's week 3. Once they got to week 4, that rider would only have 50 more cents deducted, because that now would total up to 23. The system's smart enough to recognize that 23 is the price of the monthly pass, and they'd now earn their monthly pass price on that 10th day of travel, and the rest of the trips for that month would be free. So for that rider, you know, they don't have to come up with the $23 at the beginning of the month. They would just load the money onto the card each week or each day as they see fit. And at this, for a cash rider, that savings would be $9.50 a month. Another example would be an adult rider traveling 5 days a week, taking 4 trips a day. Probably a lot of our riders have this. This is a rider who goes to work, you know, 5 days a week, maybe has to take a bus to a trolley to work and then a trolley back to a bus. Today, that rider may buy a $6 day pass each day on their Compass card and could spend up to $132 a month buying that $6 day pass for 22 work days in a month. With Pronto, that rider would just put the $6 a day onto their account, and the account would be deducted $5 for the first 2 trips that day. So $2.50 plus $2.50, the account or the card would be deducted. On their third trip that day, the account would only be deducted $1 more, because now it's smart enough to recognize that $6, the day pass price for them, and it would only charge that $1, and now it would cap them at that $6 for the day, and they'd have unlimited rides for the rest of the day. On the 12th day of travel that month, at paying $6 a day, they would have earned a monthly pass price. So 12 times 6 is 72. The system's smart enough to recognize that. And the rest of the month, there'd be no more deductions from their account, and they'd have trips for free. They wouldn't have to put $6 into their account anymore for the rest of the month, and they could now wait until the first of the next month to add money to their card. Again, no upfront money. The $72 wouldn't need to be paid. And they could, this type of rider paying cash each day, $6 a day, would see savings of $60 a month. And the same would hold true for an SDM and a youth rider at their prices, the $3 a day, the $23 a month kind of a price. So like I mentioned before, we had our 3 public meetings over the last week. We're here today to get some more input. We'll go to the MTS and NCTD boards later this week and provide them with just kind of an overall sense of what we heard from the public at the last few meetings. They're just going to get that as information, maybe provide some feedback to staff saying, you know, we really don't think you should go forward with proposals A and B, and you should move forward with proposal C. And knowing that may cost a little more money, we'll find the money somewhere else. That's kind of how I'm hoping things will go, but we can't, you know, guarantee, because the boards do have to make sure that they have the dollars to pay for any fare changes. We'll go to the Sandag Transportation Committee on Friday, February 5th with a similar item, just to provide them with some information and get their feedback. And then MTS and NCTD boards will approve the proposed fare changes in their February meetings on February 11th and 18th. And then Sandag, because we do have the fare ordinance as an ordinance. The Sandag Transportation Committee would review that in March and then approve it in April. And then the agencies could move forward in May and June to actually implement the Pronto system. So besides today and the public meetings, we have other input feedback methods. I'll bring this slide back up near the end so you can see it, but we have a phone number hotline for folks to call in and leave messages, and we'll respond to questions. We have a web form, email address, and our Sandag address. And with that, I'd like to take any questions or comments from folks. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you, Brian. It looks like we have a question from Charlene.
I have several, actually. One is, are the fare machines going to be changed? Are they going to be using the same fare machines?
They will change out the cubic compass machines entirely and put in it's the company that they've bought this system from, and they'll put in the Pronto machines and fare boxes and change over the app and everything. So it'll take a couple months to change everything over. They'll have both of the systems will be working at the same time. Once they're comfortable that Pronto can do its job and is working correctly, they'll turn off Compass and remove those machines.
Okay, part of my concern is that when we did the cubic fare machines, there was a lot of things that had to be changed on it, and trying to get the audio to them, and there's still one thing that still needs to be added to the audio. I need to be able to pause it. So if I'm at the machine, I'm buying a ticket, and somebody walks up and starts talking to me, I may not hear what is being told me by the machine. Now I got to start over at 0 at the beginning to finish my transaction, which means I'm at the machine a lot longer and people get very impatient about that. I need to be able to pause the procedure. I can if I'm using the keypad because the touch screen, because I just wait to touch, but I can't do that as an audio. The other one is, in considering fares, you keep wanting to decrease the fare for the youth. But I think in a lot of cases, the people who really are more affected by the fares are the seniors who are on limited incomes. Some of these youth that are getting a real low fare have plenty of money in their pocket. And seniors are struggling. Sometimes it's a matter of, do I take this trip, or do I try to make do with what I have in my home instead of, going out? So there are some issues that are could be, are there. I know with the access and paratransit that I understand that the cost is really, how there's guidelines to base the cost on it, which is up to double the fixed route price, but it says up to, which means it could be less than. And at $5 a ride, that's, if I'm using more than one vehicle, that's like if I come from Oceanside to San Diego, I'm paying $20 to go one way. And that gets a little bit expensive, especially if I'm doing it like 5 days a week, because I don't get the day pass and all that discounts to use access. So if it could be considered to not raise the prices to paratransit, that would be a big benefit to seniors and people with disabilities. Off the top of my head, I think that's it. I may come up with more information.
Thanks, Charlene.
Those are things that are really important.
Yep. And we heard you on the machines. I'll send over that comment to the folks testing the machines and all the equipment right now. They're doing a ton of testing. I don't know if they've reached out to the accessibility functions to try and test those. So I will relay that message and see what they're up to on that.
I would be,
right.
I'd be willing to go and check it out, but I can't get out of my house right now.
Yeah.
But they need to just really go through the procedure, close your eyes and see if you can follow what it says. Because it's a standard keypad and anybody should be able to use it. You don't have to see to use the keypad. If they just close their eyes and see how well they can function with the machine, that would give an idea how well it works. So anyway, that's my big input right now.
Okay.
Thank you, Charlene. We have Clyde.
Yeah, just real quick, and this may have been resolved already, but I know that in the past there was concern about, even though Compass Card it was county-wide, the eligibility for reduced fares had to be verified in North County for North County people and again in San Diego, I assume. So I'm just wondering if we can, if incorporated in all this planning, that eligibility verification can apply to everyone countywide. That's all.
No, good question or point, and I will, let MTS know that. They mentioned they're going to be doing online verification, and while there's a regional pass, anyone can get the regional pass through the online system. I've heard talk of NCTD maybe bringing back a Sprinter Breeze pass again at that reduced price. That's not included in these proposals currently. If they do it, it may just be a promotional period during COVID or something like that. But again, it's a regional system. But yeah, I have heard that they do their own eligibility verification. So I'd like to hear how they do plan to roll that out between the two.
Yeah, it's just an extra obstacle for some folks who need to go both places. So it would be great if that could get resolved and we could stop having to qualify in two places.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And there's folks from MTS and NCTD on. Israel's not on. Israel Maldonado is from MTS, and he's the Pronto systems administrator. He's not on the phone, but if I'm saying anything wrong, MTS or NCTD employees, feel free to jump in and correct me. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you. I think we have another comment from Marissa, and then we'll go to Charlene.
Yeah, hi. This is good to know ahead of time. I do orientation and mobility at the San Diego Center for the Blind, and so a lot of our training is training people on how to use these systems. So since this is going to be a new system for us to learn ourselves and then to go ahead and teach it to our clients, it would be really useful to either have access to like documents, PowerPoints, presentations, like anything, any resources that are going to be out there. It would be great to have access to. That way we can make sure we know the system's ins and outs so we can teach it properly to our clients. So just if there's any planning on being any resources, or if there aren't, it would be great if there would be some.
Yeah, I'm sure MTS, I'll let them know, but they're really good about trying to reach out to various groups. So, but I'll make sure that they hear that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marissa. Charlene?
Yes, I knew there was something else. That's why I said I'd probably come up with more. I was wondering, because you can buy the passes online, what kind of control is there to make sure that somebody who is able-bodied, who really doesn't qualify for an senior disabled pass, is buying it, not getting the pass that aren't supposed to have. And it's not fair that when the store sells it to them or somebody sells it to them and it's not correct, and then they get on a bus and then find out that they've paid for the wrong pass, even if they did it intentionally. It's kind of a bummer to have somebody sell you something you shouldn't have.
Yeah, I'll check on that. I'm sure they'll still do the requirements that people would be checked. When you present a certain pass, you may be asked for a driver's license backup or something like that, but I'm not 100% sure, but point well taken.
Okay, thank you, Charlene. Do we have any other member comments before we go to attendee comments?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, I don't see any other attendee comments. Go ahead, Sharon.
Yes, I wanted to ask if Brian could, and I attended the meeting, and I thought it was really well done, Brian, by the way, on the fair introductions. I was wondering if you could pass on to Mr. Maldonado. It would be nice on that pronto.com website, which I went to have a way for us to sign up for any notifications or updates to how the Pronto will be working, a database.
Good point. I'll let him know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Ethel, did you have a comment?
Let's see. Okay, great. It says my jaw says I'm now unmuted.
We can hear you. Hi, Ethel.
Excellent. Hey, how you doing? Okay, darling, I'd like you to please read me that public comment phone number. I've been searching for it forever, and I've got my audio recording ready to get that down.
Okay, the phone number is 619-595-5321. 619-595-5321.
Great. Okay, that's awesome. All right, because in my comment would be, thank you for that, but would be your outreach for those public comments. Wow, totally missed it except for a random newscast that kind of threw out as like a little aside. Oh, by the way, fares are maybe proposed fare hikes. I was like, what? Wait a minute, where are the, and the deadline for that public comment is tonight at 6. Boy, I jumped on my computer, I jumped on my phone, went everywhere using my screen reader. Oh my gosh, finally tracked down Robert Gibo. And he's like, oh yeah, well, we're just kind of following MTS. I'm like, wait, no. What about the public? We're all stuck inside, certainly the blind community. We definitely had a lot to say about it because it affects us dearly. So heck yeah. And Robert said, well, I finally did get him. He's like, I'll try to find that link for you. I got it the next day. And it was just a general kind of MTS website, which again is also really difficult to navigate with the screen reader. Never really got to that point. That's why phone number. Now I am reachable, you know, I know y'all have my phone number because I get a lot of your public service, you know, announcements, other stuff, both by mail and by, you know, email. So really outreaching our community, like to the Braille Institute, San Diego Center for the Blind, all of those that would have our, during this pandemic time, it just kind of feels like coming in the back door, sliding it in. No, outreach needs to be a lot more innovative, a little more effort to reach us, especially when it's going to reach, really affect us. We got a lot to say about it. So, and definitely my vote would be not now. It'd be kind of kneecapping the very essential people that do rely so much on public transportation. So just as we're coming out, you know, don't throw an extra barrier out there. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethel. And yeah, just to confirm, you know, the public meetings were just a couple we held last week. The board meetings, they'll be hearing more information. There's still plenty of time for the public to provide input. And I will check with MTS on their website accessibility issues to make sure that it's, you know, screen reader and all of that works. And like Sharon pointed out that there's a button for people to quickly find that says, you know, to receive updates, click here and add your email or phone number, and we'll get that out as well, hopefully.
Hopefully, let's hope for that. We're all waiting for it. Definitely. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ethel. Ilse?
Yeah, have you considered selling tickets that are both on the same trip, that are both from bus and then transferring over to the trolley station so that you don't have to pay twice? And it is usually, I know in Europe, it is usually 2 hours and you have to go in the same direction, but it is much easier to just have one ticket that is for both rides.
Yeah, we've heard that from Circulate San Diego as well, like a 2 hour, you know, you buy a 2 hour ticket and it gives you, it could even get you back the same way if you want, but it provides a lot more freedom for riders. At this point, they're not considering that. I think what MTS and NCD are pushing is that, you know, the day pass is so affordable, and the Pronto card will be so easy to use that you would just, you know, tap your Pronto card and the thing would just smartly know not to charge you too much. But unfortunately, if you only needed to ride, you know, one way and take 2 trips, you would have to pay the $2.50 or the $1.25 if you're youth or SDM, and pay that. And then, you know, your third trip likely would be capped at the day pass price. So we are going to present that comment to MTS's and NCD's boards that some people are asking for like a 2-hour kind of a system.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and go to Sharon.
Yes, I just wanted to say I receive a lot of emails. I do not know how the blind community receives their emails. I don't know if they're audio connected. I have no idea. But I know because of the emails that I sign up for the different programs and for the different notifications, I received advance notice about these public meetings. So perhaps somewhere in this chat, you can put the links for how to sign up for those. So this way people will at least have the email about it for those who can use at least email.
Gotcha. And yeah, I'll make that point to MTS and NCTD.
Okay, great. Thank you for all those comments. I don't see any other hands raised, so we can go ahead and move to item number 9, which is the 2021 meeting calendar change.
Hey everyone, this is Lisa again. And so if you remember last month or back in November at the November SDAC meeting, we approved the 2021 calendar and charter update. And so then that item went to the Transportation Committee in December for approval. And National City Mayor Alejandra Sotelo Solis, who is on the Transportation Committee and also serves as the chair of MTS's Accessible Services Advisory Committee, or ASAC, which I know a lot of you attend as well, suggested that we look at holding a joint meeting. So since both SDAC and ASAC meet in March, this seemed like the best time. I reached out to both FACT and NCTD, and the Council on Access Mobility and the ADA Advisory Group are available to join as well. So we are looking to hold one big joint meeting in March. And so in coordinating with MTS and Mayor Sotelo Solis, the best option would be for SANDAG to host this meeting. So I'll be the one sending out the agenda, and so on, but the meeting will be held on the March ASAC meeting date, which is March 11th, 2021, which is a Thursday at 1 p.m. So would everybody be okay with making this date change? Do we have any comments about this date change?
Charlene?
Hey, Charlene.
Hi, I'll make a motion that we go ahead and accept the change and have a joint meeting with the other transportation entities.
Okay,
committees.
great. Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Lisa.
Okay, thanks, Megan. Let me just call another quick vote. Ilse Carey?
Yes, I approve.
Okay, great. Kent Rodricks? Kent, are you there? I can circle back. Lori Seagram?
It's approve.
Thank you. Charlene, you motioned. Catherine Manis?
I approve.
Winona Garcia?
I approve.
Thank you. Marissa Lucero?
Approve.
Anthony DeSalis?
I approve.
Thank you. Megan, you seconded. Vassie?
Yes, approve.
Thank you. Jay?
Approve.
Thank you. Charles Main?
Approve.
Robert?
He had to step out for another meeting.
Okay, no worries. We still have enough approvals. Let me just circle back with Kent Rogers.
Lisa,
Yeah.
Lisa, I
Charlie?
just looked on the participant list, on the membership list or the panel list, and
Uh-huh.
his name is no longer on there.
Oh, okay. He might have had to leave. Okay.
Correct.
So I think 1, 2, 3. Clyde. Well, Clyde, you can serve as his alternate. Do you approve?
I approve.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. Okay, yeah, so we have enough for a quorum to approve that motion. So I'll be sure to be in touch with everyone and send out extra emails just to make sure that everybody's aware of this meeting date change. So that we'll go ahead and approve that. Thank you so much, everyone.
Great, thank you. Item number 9 is the transit operator updates. Do we have any updates that MTS can share?
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's being safe and careful out there. We continue to work on our web app for reservations and scheduling. We're doing our beta testing. We've gotten good feedback from that, and we're looking to expand that beta testing, continuing to develop our cashless fare payment option for individuals that we hope to have going in the next few months. We also completed a 90-day pilot of our virtual in-person assessments for eligibility for new applicants. This is a modification we made due to COVID. That pilot has gone really well, and we're now going to extend that pilot out so that it will be all new and recertifying individuals who will go through the virtual in-person assessment until such time as we can resume actual in-person assessments, which we're hoping will be sooner rather than later with the vaccine starting to roll out. We do continue at about 25% of our pre-COVID volume for ridership right now. And knock on wood, MTS has had some cases of COVID internally, but there has been not a single case that is tracked back to transmission within MTS of employee to employee or employee to rider. So they have all been cases where the individual contracted it from outside sources, which again, I think just speaks to the safety measures and cleaning measures that MTS has gone to ensure the safety of our drivers and our riders. And with that, I take any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Jay. I don't see any questions. Sharon?
Yes, I had to unmute. Jay, can you address the MTS meeting with Nathan Fletcher at 5 p.m. on Thursday? The state of MTS?
I don't have the specifics on that. I knew the meeting was occurring, but I don't have the specific information on that. Would refer you to the MTS website.
Okay, I can provide some information. It says join County Supervisor and MTS Board Chair Nathan Fletcher on Thursday, January 21st for an update on the latest news from MTS. Tune into the broadcast on MTS Facebook page starting at 5 p.m. The discussion will be about the new fare system, zero emission buses, service launch on the UC San Diego Blue Line extension to UTC, and environmental justice and more. So 5 p.m. MTS Facebook page, Thursday, January 21st.
Thank you, Sharon. Vassie, were you sharing anything, or is MTS finished?
I just wanted to share one quick thing about the service change. So we do have a service change coming up on Sunday, January 31st. Nothing really notable as far as change goes. The 280 and the 290, there have been trips added in both the morning and afternoon peaks for a frequency of approximately every 30 minutes. And then Route 9, Saturday service resumes into SeaWorld. However, the weekday trips continue to skip the SeaWorld parking lot stop. And then those are the only changes as far as the service change goes.
Thank you, Bessie. And NCTD, Charles?
Yes, hi. We will have our next service change in April, and NCTD will go to the board this Thursday to request an approval for the discontinuation of FlexRoute 372. The FlexRoute 372 is a on-demand only service that complements Flex 371 during the midday times only between Escondido and Ramona. We currently have just a handful of people that request that service throughout the year. So we will ask the board to allow us to discontinue that route, and with the Sandag emergency ride home program and TNC availability such as Uber and Lyft, we feel that there will be sufficient services available for those emergency only type trips. Other than that, there will just be proposed minor schedule changes for April. And that's all I have on the fixed route side. Again, Robert Gibo had to step out for another meeting, but I'm happy to take any questions and pass those along to him, specifically for paratransit.
Okay, were there any questions for Robert, Charlene?
Yes, you were mentioning about the flex route being discontinued and there's not a lot of riders. But what happens if a person, it's not an emergency, but I work in Ramona, I live in Oceanside, Escondido. What am I going to now do? It gets very expensive to use, you know, Uber and Lyft every day because it's more expensive than transit. But I have a job. Do I give up my job? Is there any consideration to that, or could maybe that could be a ride that FACT could provide on a as needed basis?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. So we are keeping 371, which provides the peak hour service, and that's where those the work trip demand currently exists. And those midday trips have been just either emergency only or say someone needs to get home. It's been on like, you know, one time a month basis, or sometimes we don't get any requests for a given month. So you're right. If someone does need to work during the middle of the day, there wouldn't be transit service available, but we're not seeing that demand based on the demand that we see for that route. So yeah, it would be TNCs, it would be emergency ride home if it's an emergency, or potentially FACT if that applies.
Okay, thank you, Charlene and Charles. FACT would be happy to help with those needs. We don't have a current same-day service, so we would need to get that trip request the day before to see if we're able to accommodate that trip, just so that everybody knows that. But we'd be happy to talk with NCTD about any other options we could partner with them on for that. Does anybody else have any questions, other questions for NCTD? I don't see any. I see, Charlene, your hand's still up. Was that just because of the other comment? Okay.
Yes, I didn't lower my hand. I'm used to places that lower your hand when you get done.
Okay, thanks, Charlene. All right, so I can go to the FACT updates, and I'll turn my video back on just so you can see me. Thanks for staying on. I know we're a little bit over time today. We had our FACT annual meeting in December. It was our first virtual meeting, and many of you attended, so I thank you for your participation. We had some wonderful keynote speakers from Sandag and from Mayor Blakespear from Encinitas, who's also the new Sandag board chair. So we just thank you for your participation for that meeting. Right now, our ridership is, we're experiencing record breaking demand right now, both for our referrals and for our ridership the last several months. We are currently looking at bringing back our fares. We had paused the fares and we were not charging any fares under Ride Fact for the majority of 2020 to alleviate some of that burden with the pandemic and alleviate also the transfer of cash from hand to hand. So our board will be reviewing bringing back those fares at our next board meeting, which is on January 28th. We are, trying to keep up as much as we can with the demand, but we're also looking at our budget and how much that's being affected by the free fares, as well as just the number of trips that we're doing every month. So that is an upcoming discussion. And then I just wanted to let everybody know that our CAM members meeting is now every month on the second Tuesday of the month. So the next one will be on February 9th, and you're all welcome to attend that meeting. If you're not receiving those agendas and you'd like to, please let me know and I can make sure that you're on that list. And that's all I have on the fact updates. Does anyone have any questions for me? I don't see any. Catherine, yes.
Yeah, just quickly, I was wondering, Megan, if you guys have an explanation for such of the demand in rides right now?
A lot of the demand, I think, is coming from a lot of referrals from 211 and from others who are looking to get transportation to in-person medical appointments. We also had a lot of coverage at the beginning of COVID from the county supervisors, as well as some news articles and even just some like TV spotlights. So I think a lot of that demand has kind of caught up with us. So we're experiencing a really high level of trip requests every day from that. And we're also doing a lot of food deliveries in collaboration with 211 and the county. So that's also adding to the ridership.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. All right. I don't see any other hands, so I think we can go to the upcoming meeting, which will be the joint meeting on Thursday, March 11th at 1 p.m. Is there anything else, Lisa, that you need to share?
No, that was it.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, everyone. And the meeting is adjourned, and I hope everyone is well and safe.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a
Take
good
care.
night.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Yes, have a good day. Stay safe.